Zak, thank you for taking the time. McLaren are double reigning Formula One world champions. You've got 50 or more partners in the group. Record revenue. You're doing well in IndyCar. You're just about to go to Le Mans. You've just launched a golf company. Is this peak McLaren?
No, it's McLaren on top form. But I think until we've won the Indy 500 and the IndyCar Championship, until we've won Le Mans and the WEC Championship, until we've won the Masters in McLaren Golf.
Okay, it's now no longer a triple crown. It's
triple
the quad.
crown. Yeah,
Right.
or it's going to have to be a triple crown. Maybe we'll get into a third sport, and we'll have to win the biggies of all three. I mean, we're obviously clearly in a great place, but this sport moves quick. We've been in the great place before, and not so great place before. So I think job now is to maintain and continue to grow. But we're certainly in a great place at the moment.
This is a great event. McLaren live in Miami. I've heard a lot. You've been on stage talking to the fans, which is, again, brilliant for the sport. You and the drivers and the old drivers. We see some of the cars in the background here of those drivers that have been out and about. You talk a lot about that, learning from failure. McLaren's been up, McLaren's been down. Obviously, the whole Bruce McLaren story is one of resilience anyway. And then when he died, the company still going on. Is that something that you've learned from your background? The story that we keep hearing is, the Wheel of Fortune story. That's well documented. But I want to look at a young guy coming over from America to the UK to be a racing driver with basically no money. How daunting was that? And how difficult was that to do?
It was very difficult. It was very daunting, but I kind of didn't know any different. So I just got stuck into it. I knew I had a massive passion for these race cars. My first race ever was the 1981 Long Beach Grand Prix, which is kind of in between these two cars here, the MO74, our first world championship, and Senna's 91 championship car. So, I've loved race cars ever since I was a little boy. I never kind of knew where I might end up. I knew the goal was to try and be world champion, but that's somewhere between a goal and a fantasy. So to be fortunate enough to be a world champion with McLaren, a two-time world champion with McLaren, and not being done yet is I think past any dream or fantasy that I had growing up.
But I just want to take you back to that moment. You pack your bags. You haven't really got a plan, as you say, but you want to go and be a racing driver in the UK. I think in today's society, in today's racing driver market, that's just not comprehensible, is it, for anybody to think that?
It's not the normal route. I'm confident in saying I'm the only one to go from Wheel of Fortune to Formula One. But I think it's just about grinding away, and I think there's been lots of people in the sport that have kind of just grind their way to the top, and then there's been those that have been grind their way to the top with resources, and then there's those that have been handed it on a silver plate. Still got to get the job done. So even if you're handed the opportunity on a silver plate, if you're going to get the job done, then you got to be a grinder, no matter what background you come from. So it's amazing. It's great to be here with all the fans in Miami. I think our team has done an awesome job off the track as much as on the track. Lou and Matt, who run our commercial and marketing, have done a wonderful job, because only 1% of McLaren fans ever get to see a race. So it's events like these that let us talk to the 99% that don't get a chance to meet our drivers or don't get a chance to see these cars close up. I keep staring at the Emerson Fittipaldi car. That's how close I came in 1981 before Formula One was big and fancy like it is today, with big garages and passes that you could get close to it. And I remember it like it was yesterday. Alan Jones won the race. So to me, this is about creating memories. And I remember all my memories, the good and bad ones, but like they were yesterday. And so if everyone can walk away from here, and I remember when I met Lando or Zak or saw a car or met Mika Hakkinen, that's what today's all about.
We're bringing the next generation of fans on, aren't we? Doing all the things we do in the media. So you didn't make it as a racing driver. What did you learn, and what do you think your characteristics are to be as good as you were at the sponsorship finding, which was, the first thing you started doing, wasn't it?
I think kind of never quitting, surrounding yourself with good people, being fascinated to understand and inquisitive what success looks like. I didn't come from a background in anything really. So it was all about, if I'm going to get a company to sponsor me, how does that work, and what gets them to a yes? And what gets them to a yes is you providing them something that they feel can help build their business. Quite simple, really. So from a very early age, I became obsessed with the corporate side of the sport. I love the corporate side of the sport, the business of the sport. I'm not a technical guy. I'm a racer, business person, commercial side. And I just became obsessed with, why do companies sponsor things? And it's because it's going to help grow their business. So in order to do that, you better become an expert and become very inquisitive about what they're trying to do with their business and care. And then the outcome of that will be you'll get a sponsor. If you start with I want a sponsor, it's kind of the wrong way around. It's like, I want to help you grow your business, and the outcome of that will be you'll sponsor me.
And that's a really simple insight that grew what was the biggest motorsport marketing agency in the world at one point, JMI.
Yeah.
Was it that simple? You didn't say, I'm going to have the best motorsport marketing company in the world. You just wanted to grind it out, as you said.
Yeah, it started with the name, Just Marketing International. Clearly not a lot of thought process put into that.
Well, nor was the race, so we didn't think about that too much.
At least the race kind of advertises what it is.
I suppose what it does on the tin, yeah.
And actually, the whole reason I didn't want to have what it does on the tin is in sponsorship. I wanted, I'm not sure this worked or didn't work, but I wanted people to be, what's this about?
Right.
If it said on the tin, this is me calling you about sponsorship, then my view was actually people might already think they know the answer to that and not take your call. So actually the reason I came up with Just Marketing was to have people like, what's that about? And see if that could break through another door or two, as opposed to, Zak Motorsport sponsorship, and then people are like, I would know
Send
about
me
this
some
guy's
money.
car. And so that was my brand case study.
You said about having the right people around you, good people around you. We're sat in front of this amazing car. I feel very privileged to be sat so close to cars that formed my childhood as well. There was a gentleman called John Hogan who was very instrumental in the sponsorship on that car. He was very instrumental in JMI and your business. Sure. How instrumental was he?
I don't think I'd be where I am today without John Hogan, and I think I can say that about quite a few people have been instrumental in my career, but no one kind of more so than John Hogan. He was Mr. Marble. Looking at the Emerson car there, I mean the photos were amazing with him and Emerson and James Hunt, and so he was the biggest guy in sponsorship in Formula One for forever. And how it came about was I was interviewing someone for a PR role, and he was down as a
reference.
Reference. I was going to say witness.
That was later on.
as a reference, and I thought, I want to talk to this guy. I know who he is, and so called, and it was a bit of a bait and switch. The intention of the call was actually to kind of, this is an opportunity to get to know John Hogan, and we hit it off right away, and he's the one that was responsible for walking me in the front door to Bernie. I didn't know Bernie before. I knew Ron at McLaren before, but that was kind of the extent of my Formula One relationships, and walked me into Frank Williams, walked me into Luca Di Montezemolo, and he was a grinder.
That's a good start, by the way, isn't it?
It's a good start. If you want to be in Formula One, get to know those.
Yep.
And there's the top 5 most powerful people in motorsports at the time. And walked me in everywhere, and he gave me a tremendous amount of credibility. He gave me a lot of confidence. I wouldn't have had the confidence to go knock on the door of Luca Di Montezemolo, and he walked me straight in through the front door. So helped me build the company. Gave me, I think, a lot of credibility because everyone knew who he was. Yeah. And he's sorely missed. We lost him during COVID.
Yeah. A lot of people watching this will be very surprised you say you didn't have the confidence to go and knock on the door. And I think that's really important. Hopefully we're going to have some younger people that want to get into this business, which is a lot more open than it used to be, of course, as you say. But really, you didn't have confidence to go and knock on those people's doors?
Maybe I had the confidence, but I didn't have the ability.
Right. Okay.
Or the the phone number.
Right.
So no, well caught. Confidence I would have had, but kind of access and how to get to them. And them taking my call, even if I got Luca's number, I've made phone calls before where people have hung up on me, and when you had John Hogan next to you, no one was going to hang up the phone on you.
Yeah, and you mentioned Bernie there. He was also instrumental in your career.
Bernie was great. I hit it off with Bernie right away. I think Bernie saw someone who was a grinder and a deal maker and a non-bullshitter, and I hit it off with Bernie right away.
And I think we forget, in those that don't really study the history as we do, that we just wouldn't be here without him, right? I mean, this sport would not be anywhere near where it was without him. We can talk about Liberty and the brilliant job they've done, but that guy is the guy.
They 100%. I mean, what he did is he's the godfather, the father,
the son,
of Formula One. And so, as much as I think Liberty picked it up at the right moment, because really Bernie made the sport too big for any one person, so the timing's great because it needed an infrastructure and a Liberty to take it to the next level. So it would have never got to where it was, but he almost made it too big for any one person, even though he was, King Kong.
Yeah. I mean, JMI, on top of the world, as I say, the biggest motorsport agency in the world. You then sold the business to CSM. You were the boss. Obviously, you had great advisors like John and whatever. How was that move from being an entrepreneur? I've seen some great quotes about you owning your own business and then moving to a corporate structure. I did the opposite, right? I came from a corporate structure to an entrepreneurship, and it was exciting, but also very nerve-wracking. What was it like doing the opposite?
It took a little bit of time to get used to. I'm fortunate, and it wasn't by design. The first time I sold 70% of the company to a private equity group, Spire Capital, Credit Suisse, and they were awesome. And they helped me run the business. They taught me a lot. They gave me kind of a formal business education, but they let me run with it. I remember an early incident, which was kind of like, hey, you don't own this company anymore. Was I was traveling, and we had some travel cases, and I just bag got lost or something. I just went and grabbed one out of the back, and then on my expense report, I owed for the bag, and I was like, "You charged me for a bag?" And they're like, "Dude, it's not your bag. You own 30% of the bag. You don't own 100% of the bag." And I was like,
"Okay,
it's a fair, fair point."
Yeah.
And so that I remember that being an early moment of like, "Hey, this is." I own a piece of the company. I may have started the company, but it's not just my company anymore. But that was a good experience. I didn't have a problem with it. And then when I sold the whole company to Chime, CSM, I think at that point I was ready. I don't think I would have been ready for a Chime CSM full acquisition in 2008. I think I benefited from 2008, and over that 5-year period, gradually becoming more and more disconnected, not from running the business, but from feeling like I own the business. So when I sold 100% of it, it wasn't a culture shock like I think it would have been had I done that in 2008. And then ultimately it felt like a job. They put me in as group CEO. I was working on other sports, most of which I don't have a passion for. And I was ready to get out of there. Only because I was doing things that I wasn't passionate about.
And you're like a lot of people in the paddock. You wake up in the morning, you think about racing and golf now as well. But that you're not thinking about horse racing or football or rugby, are you?
Cricket, rugby, Olympics, football. With all due respect, I didn't grow up around those sports. So I think the sports I love: motor racing, golf, baseball, ice hockey, tennis, are the sports I grew up playing. So what I've been able to do is directly correlate. If I played it and I grew up watching it, then I have a passion for it.
Yeah.
Soccer/football wasn't a thing in America. Never played it. Never played basketball. Never played football. Certainly never played cricket, rugby, etc. So they're just sports that, while I appreciate how awesome they are, I just don't have any background in them.
And I think, you look at people in any sport, in business, wherever you are, the best of the best are obsessed, aren't they? And you can't be obsessed with something you haven't grown up with or
loved. You can't be
love.
obsessed with everything.
No, exactly.
So I got my 5 sports, but there is no number 6.
There we go. There's a strong cut-off there. Do you ever think back and think, if I held on to JMI, if I was fully in control, how big that business could be today?
No, because I don't miss it.
Right.
I'm kind of glad they changed its name, so it kind of went out. You talk about at the peak. I think
could go to the funeral of the company almost.
Well,
and
more than anything, it kind of went out on top and
Right.
went out kind of under my name because as soon as I moved, they consolidated all the agencies they had and turned them into kind of one name, which I think was the right thing for the business. So I'm kind of happy that it. You see some entrepreneurs that look back and have a hard time with how other people run their business, but I never felt that because the way they kind of morphed all the various agencies they bought into one group. So I don't miss it because what the charge I got out of that was managing people and doing deals. I manage more people now and I'm doing more deals now. And I'm going motor racing, so there's nothing about the business that I miss.
Yeah, there we go. There's your three things, right? It's you got to love it. Paddock folklore is that you were talking to F1 about running F1 and McLaren at the same time. Is that folklore or is it true?
No, I had an opportunity. Chase Carey was brought in.
It was 2016.
2016, who did a wonderful job. Chase actually used to be my client at DirecTV, so he was someone I knew. I didn't know very well because he was the big boss at DirecTV. Eric Shanks was also there, who's now the CEO of Fox Sports.
Yeah.
One of the owners of IndyCar. It's a very small world. Derek Cheng was there. He was on the programming side. So I knew all those guys, and very flattering. I actually thought I was going to go there. And then the McLaren opportunity presented itself. And, I'd been talking to Ron, but the role Ron was offering wasn't as exciting as the Formula One opportunity.
Right.
But then when the shareholders...
So this was Mansour, was it?
Mansour and Sheikh Mohammed, and they all divorced, and Ron ended up leaving the company, and then I was presented with something that was more exciting than the Formula One opportunity. Formula One was an unbelievable opportunity, but the thing I liked about McLaren is I like to race, and so I want to be, when the lights go out, Bernie used to go home.
Yes.
When the lights go out, I want to go racing. And so I kind of just felt like it gave me the commercial excitement that Formula One would give me, the passion for the sport, to engage with the fans. So, but what it lacked was when the lights go out, I didn't want to go home. I wanted to race.
Yeah. No, I think I can absolutely see that decision. How did it feel replacing Ron Dennis? I mean, as you say, you referenced him as one of the key people in the sport early on. I think for a lot of us, he was a hero, for what he'd done with McLaren. How did that feel? Sort of, you were friends at the time as well, to a certain extent.
100%. It was a lot of weight on my shoulders. I've never viewed it as, I maybe replaced his role in the Formula One team, but he was also running the car company and doing lots of other stuff. So, I've never really looked at it that way. Awesome opportunity, quite intimidating.
Amazing.
A huge race team with immense background. I'd never run a racing team before, so I definitely, especially when you get to the technical side of the sport at JMI, I knew everything about the company. I'd done everything before. So if we were talking about hospitality, I've been there, done that. If we were talking about contracts or deal making or promotions, where you get into a Formula One team, you start talking to the aero department. I don't know what they're talking about. But as a leader, you don't need to be an expert at everything. You need to be an expert on people and motivation and giving people the resources they need. I can't possibly know everything about a Formula One team.
When you got to McLaren, it wasn't quite as it seemed on the outside, was it? There was a lot of things to fix.
It was a mess. It the team was disgruntled. A lot of politics. Fans weren't happy. We didn't have many sponsors. What sponsors we had weren't happy. As I say, other than that, everything was great. We had record low sponsorship. We were coming off our worst season in the history of McLaren. It was 35 points or something crazy. I got 9th in the championship. But what I knew we had was a great brand that needed to be kind of rejuvenated. And I knew we had great people because we have over 1,000 people. And, at that point, over 20 championships. So it was like, we got a great people and a great brand. That's a good starting point. And that's exactly what I started on was the brand. We went back to the papaya, tried to become a more exclusive brand, a more energetic, colorful, friendly, warm, as opposed to what I call kind of Darth Vader. We were black and gray and cold and not very welcoming, which I think worked fine in period because there is kind of a lot of Darth Vader fans out there. but you know, where we were, we needed to.
You want to be Luke Skywalker?
When we wanted to be Luke Skywalker. So we went to the papaya. I remember someone said to me, you're only doing that because that's what the fans want. It was like, feels like a trick question. That's like, it's exactly what the fans want. Isn't that what we're here for as our fans? And then just started building trust with the team, attacked the commercial side because I knew that was an area I could make a difference. And then if we could get the commercial built up, we could hire the best drivers, we could get new wind tunnels, things of that nature, and then it just started to feed on itself and has been an amazing run. Yeah,
I know how empty the cars were because you'll remember the project we worked on, World's Fastest Gamer.
It was on the side pod.
It was on the side pod of the Formula 1 car and the Indy 500 car that Fernando drove.
And Fernando was one of our big sponsors.
Yes, of course he was with his clothes company as well.
Yeah.
So a good name check there as well for him. So, during COVID, it seems that McLaren almost went bust.
We were close. I always had confidence our shareholders wouldn't let that happen, but they were pouring a ton of money into the automotive company, and you know, no one's got a bottomless pit. So I knew they would find a solution, which we did find a solution, but we held on as long as we could until we had to have a solution. But you know, that was
I heard that there was a phone call to Liberty at one point, that maybe there was like Eddie Jordan phoning Bernie in the old days.
We needed help. We needed help, and Liberty were great. You know, they never needed to help, but they were prepared to help. But being prepared to help got some other people to step up. So no, we were making phone calls. It was pretty dire situation, and it was one where we were starting to have some on-track success, so I had to kind of shelter the team because there was nothing they could do about it other than just keep performing. That's going to make my job easier to raise money, raise sponsorship, so I didn't want to distract them, scare them on something that was out of their control, because if they knew what was going on, they would have been terrified, because I was.
And that was another skill set you suddenly had to find, which was raising money and things like sale-leasebacks of the property and everything else. I mean,
we've since bought it back, but it was sold the building, sold race cars, ended up selling a piece of the racing team, and then we've had this phenomenal turnaround. We bought the racing team back, we bought the building back, and no more race cars are for sale. So it's come full circle.
At that point, I think £560 million was the valuation when the sort of support came in. You're on record saying last September that the team's now worth over $4 billion.
Pretty good turnaround.
That's not a bad turnaround,
Pretty good turnaround in a pretty small period of time.
Yeah.
And that's a credit to everyone at McLaren. It's a credit to Formula One, right? Because I don't think McLaren's alone in that value creation. Look at, Aston was bought out of bankruptcy. Williams was on the verge. Audi acquired Sauber. Like, you had 3-4 teams that were bust or going bust, and now that are all worth several billion. And I think that's a hats off to Liberty and the whole industry for working together. And the Miami Grand Prix wasn't here that long ago. No,
when I tell people what was happening in 2019 with the teams, exactly that. We had a lunch early with people new to the sport. They're flooding in. They need to be educated. When I tell them about Ferrari spending $500 million, other teams going out of business, pre-Drive to Survive. I mean, people can't believe the sport and the way it's changed. But do you think now valuations have topped out? Do you think that
Not at all. I think everyone says that about every major sport every time there's a record sale, and now look at where they are, right? So when Steve Ballmer bought the LA Clippers for $2 billion, everyone thought he was insane. I'm not a basketball guy, but what's that worth now? $5 billion. New York Giants, the Dolphins, the Dodgers. So I think in these big sports, I've never seen franchise values go down in the big stuff. And every time there's a sale, everyone goes, that's nuts, you overpaid. And then 3 years down the line, that's old news and someone's done the same. So I think the sport's going to just keep growing.
And where is it headed commercially? Where are the white spaces that we haven't exploited at the moment commercially?
I think we've got the benefit of being so technically sophisticated that we can create a lot of excitement around the digital space. And everyone's digitally savvy now, right? Everyone's got an Android, Google phone, or an Apple phone in their pocket, and so we're kind of growing up on technology, and I think we're a sport that feeds out a lot of technology. So I think I think what Netflix showed was you can be a fan of the sport on the track and off the track, and I think our sport's a bit unique in that way. All these other kind of call them stick and ball sports, it's all concentrated on the field of play. What goes on in the corporate offices and the trades and all that, I don't think has the same level of maybe politics that motor racing has.
No, absolutely. Where do you think geographically the growth is? Is there more to come in America? I think everyone agrees there is. We've just seen the Turkey Grand Prix coming back.
Yeah, I think Asia Pac. I think you could have more Grand Prix in North America, but I don't think there's room. And there's not room without it coming at the expense of other markets. I'd like to see us in Korea. I'd like to see us in South Africa. I'd like to see a second race in China. I'd like to see a race in Taiwan or Bangkok. And so I think Asia Pac is where we need to grow. Europe's always going to be the home of Formula One. I think we're in a great spot in not just the States, but Americas, right? Yeah. Mexico, Canada, Brazil, here. So I think from an America's point of view, the schedule is very healthy.
As we talked about, you're involved in IndyCar. You're just about to be involved in Le Mans. You've pulled out of Formula E. What can these other championships learn from Formula One that they're not doing at the moment?
Well, I think they can all learn from each other. I think there's as much from Formula One to learn from IndyCar and NASCAR as the other way around. I think
what would that be? What's the thing that Formula One's not doing that one of those other series is doing?
I think and it's difficult because of the size and scale, and like what we're doing here in Miami is a good example of it. The accessibility of Formula One, being able to meet a driver, being able to see the car close up. That being said, the size and scale of the sport's so big, it'd be nice to do it, but it's almost impossible to do it. But, when you look at an IndyCar paddock, it's more open. That being said, we have sponsors spending a lot of money, and we can't not give them money can't buy experiences because that's what they're paying for their customers. So I think some of the accessibility, getting close to the cars, but I think we're getting there. That's why we're doing the Miami Lives of the world. On the flip side, I think when you look at the level of professionalism in Formula One, it's a quality over quantity game, and I think that's something IndyCar could benefit from. Quality over quantity. So kind of the truth somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. Somewhere in the middle wasn't Formula E. McLaren pulled out of Formula E. Was that strategic? Is that a straight swap Formula E for Le Mans?
It pretty much is. I think we can't race everything everywhere all the time, and we don't have electrification in our road cars, certainly at the moment. We've been to Le Mans, we've won Le Mans, we've got history there. That's much more relevant for McLaren today. IndyCar is about having a much larger presence in North America. As big as Formula One is here, we want to be even bigger than our competition. So it was just a function of, the Triple Crown is what gets us excited. We're the only team to have ever won it. We're the only team currently competing in it and or will be competing in it. So, it was a strategic decision. I've seen the new Formula E cars. They look pretty awesome. But it was just, I would say WEC is a better brand fit for us. In
5 years' time, what are the 3 things that no one would believe to be true that will be true in Formula One?
That's a good question. Well, I don't know, because I think what you could do with Formula One cars, we don't want to do with Formula One cars, which is using technology and diminishing the role of the driver. But no one wants that. So we need to keep that balance. So that's where the technology could go. I'm not saying autonomous, but we had driver-assisted cars before, long time ago, and they were banned. So that's where they could go. And then what they'd be capable of, people wouldn't kind of believe, but that's where technology is. But again, that's not what the sport wants, so I don't think that's what we'll see. I think a modern-day Formula One car with all this AI that's going on, I think Formula One teams will operate and look different in 5 years' time, but hopefully they'll just still be awesome, fast race cars with gladiatorial race car drivers going at it.
And anything strategic? We talked about the geography, the type of drivers we're seeing. Is there anything you can foresee that at the moment we're missing, that in 5 years' time there'll be an opportunity to change that?
Not really. I think it's more of the same, but just continue to innovate. I think the one thing that we will see, and I think we've even spoke about it in the past, is from a eSports point of view, when we're able to really properly put ourselves in races at the Monaco Grand Prix against Lando and Oscar real time, that's going to be very cool and kind of the ultimate experience. So I do think that's coming. I think when that comes, the engagement from fans will be that much greater.
We've been talking about that for nearly 10 years, and it's getting close with all the technology we got on the cars, all the data and everything.
It'll get there.
Yeah, it'll absolutely get there. We're wrapping up. You're very busy. This is an amazing event. It's not peak McLaren, though. You made that clear. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given that you'd like to pass on to people?
Don't make the same mistake twice. And I've made a lot of mistakes. And I've made the occasional mistake twice. But mistakes are learning experiences. But if you make them a second time, then clearly you didn't learn. So I think kind of getting stuck in, you're going to fall off the horse, you're going to crash the car, you're going to get way more no's, and almost kind of like get used to failure and use that as an opportunity to push hard for the win and celebrate the win. But being real with yourself as well. I meet a lot of people that it's great to have a fantasy, but don't live in fantasy land. And the way you do that is roll up your sleeves, get stuck in, get used to losing, get used to rejection, get used to crashing, but learn from all of it and go again and be brave.
I heard a great quote once, which was, winning is so sweet because most of the time you're losing.
Pretty much the case, right? I mean, you're going to lose more than you win in sport and life, and so it's part of it.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate the time. We'll speak again, no doubt. All the best.
Cheers.